Hello and welcome back. Ever looked at the front panel of a spectrum analyzer and just thought, whoa, that's a lot of buttons? Well, if you have, you are definitely in the right place. Today, we're going to demystify this amazing tool by getting a handle on its most fundamental controls. Let's get right into it. Just a quick heads up, this is the second part of our big 10-part tutorial on RF testing. We're picking up exactly where we left off and focusing completely on the basic operations you'd find in Chapter 2 of our guide. But hey, if you're just joining us, don't worry about it. This is the perfect place to start with the fundamentals. So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll get comfortable in what I like to call the cockpit. Then we'll learn how to navigate the frequency and amplitude axes. That's the horizontal and vertical stuff. After that, we'll see how to get a really clear view using filters. And finally, we'll wrap up with how to capture data that's not just accurate, but calibrated. Stepping up to a spectrum analyzer can really feel like you're about to pilot a 747. I mean, there's just a sea of buttons and knobs, right? But don't sweat it. Just like a pilot, we only need to really master a few key controls to get this thing off the ground. Okay, this screen right here, this is our command center. You can see it's basically broken down into the main display, all the controls, and the readouts. It might look a little overwhelming at first, but we are about to tackle each of these sections one by one. I promise, by the end of this screen is going to be your best friend for figuring out what's going on with any RF signal.
Let's start with the horizontal axis. This is your window into the entire radio frequency spectrum. Everything you see here is all about frequency, and learning how to control this view is, without a doubt, the very first step to finding the signal you're hunting for.
The two most important controls for this are center frequency and span. And honestly, the pan and zoom analogy is just perfect. Center frequency lets you pan the camera left or right to point your view at a specific spot. And span? That's your zoom lens. You can zoom way out to get a huge overview or zoom way in to see the tiniest details of a signal.
So actually homing in on a signal is a really simple 4-step process. First, you start wide. Use a wide span to get the lay of the land, see what's out there. Then you find your signal of interest and use the center frequency to put it right in the middle of the screen. From there, you just zoom in by reducing the span to see all those fine details. It's a simple, repeatable method for finding exactly what you need.
And this isn't just theory, right? Here's how it works in the real world. Let's say you're looking for a ham radio signal. You wouldn't start by zooming all the way in. No way. You'd start wide, maybe with a 4 megahertz span, just to find it. Once you've got it, you center it and then zoom into a 100 kilohertz span. Why? To see the modulation sidebands. Those are basically the little information-carrying ripples on either side of the main signal. Seeing them clearly is how you actually analyze the transmission.
Okay, so we've pretty much mastered the horizontal, the frequency axis. Let's turn our attention to the vertical axis now. This is all about amplitude, and it answers one fundamental question. How strong is my signal? Getting this view right is absolutely key to getting an accurate measurement.
So, our key controls here are the reference level and input attenuation. The reference level, that just sets the power value for the very top line on the screen. It lets you shift the whole view up or down. But input attenuation is just as critical. Think of it like a pair of sunglasses for the analyzer. It protects its sensitive guts from really strong signals, and it also helps optimize the whole measurement range.
You know, getting this right is really a balancing act. You want your main signal high up on the screen to get the best resolution, but not so high that its head gets chopped off. That's clipping. But if you set your reference level way too high, you push all your weaker signals down into the noise floor where you can't see them. And sure, lowering the attenuation makes you more sensitive, but you risk mixer compression. That's when the input gets totally overloaded and your signal gets distorted, kind of like a blown-out speaker. It's all about finding that sweet spot for a clean, accurate measurement.
Now this right here is a total gem from the source material, a really practical rule of thumb. If you're expecting a signal to come in around, say, 0 dBm, just set your reference level to +10 or +15 dBm. It's a simple little formula that gets you in the right ballpark almost immediately, and it takes a lot of the guesswork out of the setup.
Okay, so we can find our signal and we can set its level. But how do we go from just seeing it to actually analyzing it? Well, this next part is the secret sauce. It's all about using the analyzer's internal filters to reveal the details that are hidden inside that signal.
We have two super important filters to work with: resolution bandwidth, or RBW, and video bandwidth, or VBW. So why two? Well, think of RBW as your microscope for frequency. You use a narrow RBW to separate two signals that are sitting right on top of each other. VBW is different. It's more of a smoothing filter for the trace itself. It averages out all that fuzzy noise to give you a much cleaner picture of a signal's real power.
So how do you know which RBW to pick? This table makes it pretty simple. If you're just searching for a signal across a wideband, use a wide RBW for a really fast sweep. If you're looking at a modulated signal, a medium RBW gives you a nice balance between detail and speed. And if you're hunting for very faint, spurious signals, a narrow RBW is absolutely your best friend for the job.
All right, we're in the home stretch now. We've got our signal framed, it's in focus, the levels are set. Now we just have to make sure the data we capture is accurate and, trustworthy. This part is all about professional discipline and understanding the instrument's final settings.
Now, you really want to pay attention here because this is a big one. Sweep time. It isn't just about how patient you are. It's actually dictated by physics. The narrower your RBW and the wider your span, the longer the analyzer has to take to give you a correct reading. If you rush this process, you will get bad data, period.
The detector is what determines how the analyzer actually reports the signal's amplitude at every single point. For general everyday use, the peak detector is fantastic because it's not going to miss any narrow signals. But for measuring the true power of a noisy, complex digital signal, you're going to want to use the average or RMS detector. It's all about picking the right tool for the specific signal you're looking at.
And all this brings us to a really critical final point. None of these measurements mean anything if your instrument isn't calibrated. So what is calibration? It's just the process that makes sure what you see on the screen actually matches reality. It is the absolute foundation of trustworthy professional measurements. And this brings us to our final pre-flight check before you take any critical measurement. 1. Let the machine warm up for a good 30 minutes to stabilize. 2. Run its own internal calibration routine. 3. Check it against a signal you know is accurate. And 4. Log the results. This simple discipline is what separates professional engineering from just guesswork.
So there you have it. We've gone from being intimidated by the cockpit to being in full command of the controls. You now have the fundamental skills to not just see a signal, but to precisely investigate any RF signal out there. So I guess my question to you is, what's the first thing you're going to go explore?